Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the brand new Karbon Knives Buckhorn. Karbon Knives, if you don't know, is the brand started by the Hall of Famer Ken Onion. He is one of the greats in the knife community as far as knife makers go. The OEM is Karbon. This particular knife won Knife Collab of the Year at Blade Show Atlanta 2024, and I think it's well deserved on this one. So this is a larger knife coming in at 8.84 inches long with a 3.88 inch drop point blade of CPM S35V in steel. This particular knife has a pretty fine, it looks like bead blasted finish, which I'm not usually a bead blast fan, but this one is very, very slick to the touch, causing very minimal friction when cutting. So it actually aided in the slicing in my opinion. And being that it's very fine, I don't have any smudges from all the testing I've done, especially not like you'd see on a heavy blasted finish, because a lot of times you see bead blasted finish on cheaper knives that have a very rough blade finish underneath, so they're trying to cover that up. You can tell because you don't see not a single striation that there was a lot of finishing underneath here before they bead blasted it. So that helps also with corrosion resistance, because usually bead blast opens the pores up a lot because it's very rough underneath, and they're pelting it with these microfine silica beads. Well, this one I haven't had any issues with it rusting whatsoever, so I'm okay with it. I think it looks nice, goes with the overall aesthetics of the knife. You do have some jimping up top. I'd call it moderate traction. It does give you some traction here. They could have probably extended it all the way out to here, but I'm not a big jimping fan anyway, so I'm good with it the way it is. This is going to be a highly versatile blade shape because you have that low tip, so it's very easy to get the tip down into things to make drag cuts if you want, or if you need to make some very fine precision cuts, you can. That nice top swedge comes out to thin out that area a little bit. However, it's still nice and robust. If you needed to do some twisting or turning, you should be fine. You have a excellently executed sharpening choil because they brought that plunge line all the way to the back right here. And then they have this cut right here. So you're going to have tons of sharpening light before to widen in the back. Love seeing that done perfectly like that. You have the angled thumb studs like he did on the Kershaw Blur. However, these function way better in my opinion, and they're way more comfortable than the Blur. I thought these were external stops, but as you look right here, it's not touching the frame at all. And you do have a stop pin that does wrap around here, so it's done properly, so you have more surface area contacting that stop pin. It allows it to be stronger and last a lot longer. I really enjoyed this blade shape. I like how it still has that upswept, very gradual belly all the way to that tip. So cutting on a flat surface is a breeze. You could get a lot of that blade onto the cutting board before you come in contact with your fingers at all. And like I said, drag cuts a breeze, and in-hand cuts, being that this belly doesn't swoop up really quick, you're going to be able to make in-hand cuts rather easily as well. But you'll probably have to watch out for this area so you don't fall into that while you're cutting. This one has a decent height, flat grind up here, then it kind of drops down up to that tip. So it's going to thicken up a little bit here. So the behind the edge thickness all the way to about right here is around 17 thousandths behind the edge, and then closer to that tip it gets to about 20 thousandths behind the edge. So still nice and thin, and it should slice fairly well. Let's find out. The knife came with a very nice edge out of the box, and this is the first time I've gotten a knife from Karbon or Karbon, and I'm very impressed. The S35V came extremely sharp, and the blade has decent edge geometry. It's fairly thin. All right, let's just say thin. It's got thin edge geometry, and it's slicing very well. And right at the back, I'm going to tell you, I like this blade shape a whole lot. It gives you a lot of versatility. You still have an upswept belly like that, but it's a gradual belly all the way to the tip. So, you know, it should be good at everything we do in my testing at least. Now we're going to test the ergos, something I was a little worried about because these are thinner scales. And for the most part, it was perfectly fine. I was able to make fine curls rather easily. Now, whenever I get toward the end and I'm really bearing down, you know, where the chamfers come down at the contour, it was a little uncomfortable. Not, you know, anything that made me want to stop or anything. But as you can see, I'm able to do it rather easily. Now, here's where I can tell that the edge has some bite to it. It's pretty much push cutting this 1/2 inch sisal rope. And even though the geometry is a little thicker by the tip, it's still, thin enough. It's still, I think, at 20 thousandths behind the edge, which is about most Spydercos. I don't know what the edge bevel is on this one, but it feels like it's, not super thick, because I can usually tell when I'm doing this if it is. I'm definitely going to sharpen it up after this, and I expect it probably going to be very, very good in performance after the second or third sharpening, because it's good up until this point. Now we'll see if it starts to fall off or anything toward the end, but so far I'm happy with it. It's been a while since I tested anything in S35VN. We end up getting, we end up getting 120 cuts, and I run out of rope at that point. Not testing for edge retention, just making sure there's nothing crazy that goes on with the bevel. Make sure there's no chipping or anything, or dulling quickly or anything. And as you see, it's very, very easy to use that tip to manipulate it into that leather. And we have that upswept belly that makes all this cutting very, very easy as well. Nothing really gave it any trouble. That finish on the blade helped it to glide through the material rather easily. Not much friction that I felt. And yeah, first knife from them, I definitely was happy with the way it performed. Can't wait to sharpen it up, see how it does after that. But yeah, I love this knife. The deployment and action on this knife is very, very nice. You have the flipper tab and thumb studs. Like I said, those thumb studs, they're angled like that. They're nice and comfortable. You have some texture, and I mean, they come out nice and fast. And then watch this drop shut action. Very, very smooth. You can slow roll it if you like. And they have that detent ball tuned very nicely. Plus, you have that flipper tab that is sitting in front of the pivot. You do have some jimping there, so it grabs the finger nicely. And this thing rockets out. It's got tons of momentum, and then a well-tuned detent for both actions, which is not something that's easy to do, but they did an outstanding job here. When it comes to milling, this knife has it all, in my opinion. So you have this large pivot that kind of resembles a shotgun shell there. It's anodized titanium, gold. So you have the name of the knife, Buckhorn, and then I guess that's the date of when it was released, maybe. I don't know. And then check all this milling out. Very, very impressive. First, you have a very slight contour on the scales. Then you have this striping milling right here, the little 3 holes. You have this center line right there. The coolest milling, in my opinion, is this right here, because that is actually raised. And usually, it's just a laser etch finish, but no, that's actually milled in there. You can actually feel it. It's not sharp or anything. It feels nice. And in my opinion, it looks very, very nice as well. It's also right here, and then you flip it over. They even put it here and on the pocket clip, which is very impressive. You can kind of turn it right here. You can see what I'm talking about. Hopefully, it is raised right there. It feels nice. And then they carried it over. It's identical on both sides. As far as your hardware, your pivot is a Torx T8. Unfortunately, they went with Torx T6 for the body screws and that clip screw. I'm not super upset about that. I'm sure they look nice and crisp, so hopefully won't have any problems, but I would have loved to see at least T8 throughout. You have that titanium backspacer that does sit proud of the scales. You do have some little jumps there, and then you have a bevel going on both sides so you don't have any sharp areas, with an integrated lanyard loop in the back. Your backspacer comes up almost the entire length of the blade, so you don't have to worry about coming in contact with the edge in the closed position. Outstanding. Look at this. Outstanding blade to handle ratio. Almost 1-to-1. Love seeing that. Blade is perfectly centered right down the pipe. You have a 3D mill titanium pocket clip. It is tip up, right hand carry only, as you can see there. You have a sharp pocket clip here. And then if you turn it over here, you can see there's a swell, palm swell in the scales. And that clip is sitting on that swell. And hopefully you can see that you also have some texture underneath there. So not sure if this could become a pocket shredder. It hadn't shredded my pockets yet. It is a little tight though. Anytime you have those sharp pocket clips, they can be a little bit tight. However, it does hold the knife really well. And just listen. You do have a little, in my jeans, I do have a little thwack sound. So probably going to become a pocket shredder. And as you can see, it's not deep carry, but it sits pretty darn deep in there. You at least have something to grab a hold to when you're pulling it out of the pocket. They pretty much did all the milling on the exterior. Your scales are pretty thin. You can look in here, you can see you have Kin Onion written in the inside. And check this out, you have a little post right here where my finger's pointing. That gives you an extra locator point there. And then if you look right here where this finger is, front of the Kin Onion right there, you have 2 screws also. So pretty interesting the way they did that. Should give you some more stability side to side on the scales. And as you can see, they did a good job of putting the lock relief on the inside. However, they also put these lines on the outside. I think it would have been great if they would have not put those. That way they could have kept this milling pattern all the way through. You wouldn't have broke it up at all. And plus, this could possibly catch onto your pants depending on how you're putting the knife in the pocket. I haven't had an issue with it, but I would have loved to see this on the inside. All that milling brings the weight to 126 grams or 4.44 ounces. I think that's great. Lockup on my knife, I'd say, is sitting at around, I don't know, maybe 40, maybe even 50%. It has very, very tight lockup. When I say there's absolutely no movement in any direction whatsoever, very, very tight, nicely done there. Now, your access to the lock bar is something that I don't love because as you can see, it is flush with the show side scale, and being that these are thin titanium scales, they did put a little chamfer there, but it's not the easiest to get your thumb in there to disengage. However, I always use this portion of my thumb, and when I do that, I have absolutely no problems whatsoever. So for me, it's not really an issue, but if you like to use the tip of your thumb, it may be uncomfortable after a while, but no issues if you use this part, at least for my hands. Like I said, this is a larger knife. It's bigger than both the Ontario Rat 1 and 2. It's larger than the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3. And it's just a hair longer than both the Cold Steel Code 4 and the Civivi button lock Praxis. All right, now for my nitpicks complaints, I would have loved to have a little bit more lock access right here. It'd have been nice to be able to get in there a little bit easier. However, like I said, as long as I use that, I'm perfectly fine. There's no lefty love here. Wish they would have used T8 hardware throughout. And I wish this pocket clip had a little bit more flex to it. And maybe a flat spot underneath that pocket clip. That would have been excellent. And I would have loved to not have the lock relief slits right here at all. Maybe, I guess they needed it because this is thin. I'm sure there was a reason for it, but, you know, just breaks up the lines of that. It would have just been nicer. All that said, how do I feel about the knife? This comes in at $275. Do I think it's overpriced? I personally don't. You know, I know some people will think so because it's S35VN. It performed really, really nice. This knife is a nice large knife. It has milling for days. A lot of times when you see tons of fine detailed milling like that, the price usually jumps up pretty high. Not to mention, this is a collaboration knife, and it's a collaboration with a Hall of Famer knife maker, Kin Onion. The action is outstanding. The detent is perfectly tuned on this one. And even with the minor nitpicks I talked about, I still love the knife, and I'm going to continue to carry this knife. If you are interested in this one, I will have it linked down in the description. It'll probably be an affiliate link, so if you want to help support what I do here on this channel, it helps pay for my testing materials. That is awesome. If not, no big deal at all. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.